We are so thrilled to be partnering with Hinge. Hinge is the dating app designed to be deleted. As you all know, I'm a huge Hinge advocate as I met my partner of almost 3 years on the app. Even before meeting him, Hinge was always my go-to app because I met more relationship-minded people here and had some great dates. Clearly, I haven't been on the app for a little while, but I re-downloaded it to check out some of the new features. One that stood out to me was the voice prompt, my best friend's take on why you should date me, where your friend can hype you up. Not only does this make the profile creation less daunting, but it's not always easy to see your own green flags. So to test it out, I asked Yue some fun prompts to get her take on what I could put if I was dating again. So the first one, how long have we known each other? What was your first impression of me and how has that changed?
Julie and I have known each other for almost 10 years. My first impression of Julie was that she's very social, but I've learned that she has a lot more depth to her beyond the social butterfly that she is.
My next prompt, what do you think are my green flags?
I would say she's deeply loyal. She believes in love, curious mindset, and she is fearlessly ambitious.
And then last but not least, what kind of friend am I?
Julie is the kind of friend who will always have your back, no matter what.
Damn, that feels nice to hear. So download Hinge and try voice prompts today. Then find someone worth deleting the app for.
Hi, I'm Yue Xu.
And I'm Julie Kraftchick.
We're active daters turned dating sociologists.
Here to dive into everything modern dating and relationships.
Welcome to the DATEABLE podcast. It's another week and another opportunity for us to talk about dating. We will never pass up the opportunity to talk about dating.
Never, 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 never. And this is a great topic. I'm so excited that we're talking today about, do you believe in love at first sight? Is this something that's possible? Because Yue came to me and said, I have a friend who has a great story. I just went to her wedding, and hearing what they said just gave me so much hope that this is something that people experience.
I don't think I've talked about love at first sight for at least a decade. I feel like it was something that was kind of big for a while in rom-coms, and then people forgot about it and decided they didn't believe in it. There is something really beautiful to believing in the magic of dating, and maybe it's not love at first sight. That's probably a little too much for a first impression, but there are certain people you're just so drawn to. The energy just works.
Yeah. We wanted to poll our audience to see what people's perception was about love at first sight, because I agree there's something about it that was very much 90s rom-com era that has died out. Maybe we've just all become too cynical or realistic. Who knows? But I was actually surprised that on Instagram, 70% of people said no, but 30% of people said they did believe in love at first sight.
It's a pretty good number. I'm impressed by that.
Yeah. And then our Facebook group was much more skeptical.
Surprise, surprise.
It was like close to 0%. It's just funny, like how these polls always deviate slightly.
It just sounds like people who may have believed in love at first sight before, and what they experienced didn't match up to what they wanted to believe in. And now they no longer believe in that. I certainly can feel that too. That definitely resonates with me. It's you want to believe that there are certain people who are so special. They come into your life for a reason and they're here to stay, only to find that they don't stay. And that's very disappointing. So then you think, well, there's really no rhyme or reason to why people come into my life.
I would love to dive into it in a different episode, just like more what are the personality characteristics that make certain people feel very, drawn to that. Because I definitely have a friend I can think of that is in this camp. She definitely took a huge risk with someone that she met on vacation and is now living in Mexico with him and, building a life together. And I think there's certain personality types. Maybe it's the way we romanticize love, but also just, more like, I would say she's like more of like an adventurous adrenaline rush type person too. So I wonder if there's like certain characteristics that correlate a bit more.
And you're really into the meet cute story. You're a storyteller. You're into that whole thing. That probably can feed into to it. A stage in life where you're just open to the universe could also have something to do with it. This guest in particular for this episode, I just find the story so fascinating on many layers. On one hand, it's a kind of a love at first sight story, but on the other hand, it's just opening yourself up to what else could be for you in the universe and not accepting your fate as it is today. There is something really beautiful about control your narrative or take back the control of your narrative. So we just came back from their wedding a few months ago in Mexico. It was a gorgeous, gorgeous wedding. And it made me believe in love again. I know that sounds so dramatic, but you go to a lot of weddings and they all kind of blend in together and all the vows kind of blend in together. But hearing their story, and you'll get to hear it in this interview, it made me realize that love is a chosen path for people. You can find someone that you can jive with, you're attracted to, but you choose to be in love with them and to stay in love with them. So I'll leave it at that. But the wedding made me believe in love again.
Definitely. And, this episode, I think I was excited about the topic, but it even far exceeded my expectations.
Yeah.
Yue's friend Kate is such a wonderful storyteller in general, but also just what she dealt with to get here, I think is very relatable for a lot of us, that we think we should go down a certain path and our relationship should look a certain way.
Yeah.
And when do you start to challenge those shoulds? So if you're skeptical of love at first sight, keep going, because I think at the end of this, you'll get a lot out of this episode.
Great.
That being said, I had a very interesting experience.
I'm dying to hear this. Julie's like, oh my God, something just happened to me, but I'll save it for when we record the intro. I had to wait 48 hours.
I really now hope I don't disappoint with this story. So, okay, I'll tell the story, and I feel like this really relates to this topic. So I'm leaving my apartment, and this old school Mercedes-Benz pulls up, like right outside, and they park. And it's one of those cars that you just look at because it's so
cool.
You know what I mean? Like that very like cool but like classic type car. So anyways, this guy gets out of it. He's just like this super tall. He ended up being Jamaican because he did come over to me. He's wearing like a Rastafarian hat. Like you cannot miss this guy, right? So I don't know if I was like just looking at him or whatnot, but he starts walking towards me and he's just like, "You are beautiful. I want to see you again. Ooh. What's your name?" Very aggressive, coming into my apartment, like not in my apartment, but there's like a outdoor area. So he's like coming towards me. And I was just like, what is happening right now? Because I can't even remember the last time this has happened to me. And then also I'm recovering from a cold, as you could probably tell from my voice. So I am in like the peak unattractiveness that I can't even imagine. Snot on my face. Like this is not the time that you would ever even fathom that you'd be getting hit on by someone. So I don't know, maybe it was this guy, like he was telling me he was from Jamaica. I don't know if he was just visiting, he was in the tourist mindset, what the deal was. He did not seem like the typical San Franciscan dude, that's for sure. Because that dude would find you at an app opposed to actually talk to you in real life.
He would not
be this bold. Like I had to be like, oh wait, I do have a boyfriend. Yes, I do have a boyfriend. Or not, like, you know what I mean? Like I was just so taken back of like, what is happening right now? But it's an interesting dynamic because either one, this guy was so smitten by me and had that love at first sight feeling, or he does this to everyone.
Well,
cards are out. We don't know.
He wouldn't get very far in one day if he's stopping at every corner to talk to some girl.
Well, he happened to park there, so he got lucky. I don't know.
You must have exuded some kind of energy. And maybe it is that getting over an illness energy where you don't give a fuck. That really spoke to him.
That's the key to have people fall in love with you at first sight.
Were you wearing like a special outfit or something that you...
No, I was wearing like a sweatshirt.
Hey, something about you, something made him just walk towards you.
I don't know. I mean, I will admit, though, I couldn't even register what was happening. But I applaud people that actually want to, pursue people in real life.
Yeah.
Like we hear a lot of our listeners say, I want to go out, I want to meet people. But I do think there is like a little bit of a balance because I think I just wasn't expecting it. So I felt like I started to like clam up a little because I was just like, what's happening? So how do you like ease in a little? But anyways, it was a very interesting dynamic because I can't remember the last time this happened to me. It kind of reminded me of like when we were out, remember? And you got like the waiter like gave you a note saying like how attractive he thought you were.
But also it's a pre-printed card. So it's not like he wrote down a message.
Well, that's my question though. Is this just, they do this with everyone? That's kind of what my vibe was with this guy too. Like, is this just, I just happened to be the right person at the right time stepping out of my apartment?
I find it a little bit sad that this type of behavior is not really mainstream, so therefore not that accepted. Yeah. So you end up questioning their motives and like, oh, does he do this to everyone? And maybe their intention is to really tell you that he finds you attractive and that you made his day by being in his presence. Maybe there could be something so innocent, but for some reason we have to think, oh, what's the motive here? Sadly, right?
It is sad because it's a double-edged sword because then we complain no one reaches out and no one makes any moves. So like, what is the answer here?
Yeah, what is the answer here? What do you do? How do you stay open but also staying vigilant to all the other shit that's going on? I know, it's hard because anybody who approaches you these days, even if it's not under romantic context, like most people flinch.
Yeah.
They go like, what do you want from me?
Yeah.
And then it's like, I'm just saying hi. That's wild that we think that way, sadly. But there is a way to do it right. And there's a way to accept it right. We just have to get there somehow. There's a balancing act.
It is such a double-edged sword because I do remember another time I was getting a salad once. This was years ago. And this guy just started like making small talk about like croutons. And my instinct was just like, what the fuck? But I actually found him like really attractive. And I later was like, oh, I think he was like trying to talk to me. But it's hard when you're just so out of that mindset. And it's definitely a training of muscles to be open and be receptive because, that is when magic happens. We all say that we're missing that magic in today's world.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be someone that you are romantically interested in or even attracted to. Why can't we just have these human-to-human conversations anymore? I was out with a girlfriend of mine this weekend, and I guess I've been craving this like stranger interaction. And there was an older gentleman that was talking to us, probably in his 70s. And I was having a good time shooting the shit with him. Maybe there was a little flirtiness. Okay. And I wouldn't normally do this. I would normally be like disgusting. But during this time, I'm like, yeah, I'm willing to flirt with this guy and make him laugh. And then my friend's like, I can't believe you entertained that even. I'm like, I've been craving this kind of stranger interaction. Is that weird? That yes, it's with someone who's old enough to be my parents' friends, but I don't know, something about this interaction made me feel alive again.
Yeah. Though, I am also a proponent of like at first sight because I would say with my partner currently, we are actually, today is our 2-year anniversary.
Oh,
officially 2-year anniversary. And
what do you count as your anniversary?
Our first date is what we call it from.
Okay.
What do you count as
Same.
yours?
Same.
Yeah. I mean, I guess like it could be technically like when you DTR'd and defined the relationship, but I don't know if I actually even remember what day that was.
I don't remember. No.
Yeah.
I did not commemorate that day.
Yeah. I mean, I could probably like figure it out if I went back far enough. But anyways, yes, I do first date. So I would say with my partner, like I definitely really liked him after the first date in the sense of like I liked him as a person. But I think I was, first of all, I was in a place that I credit Jeff Harry's episode that we did, Making Dating Fun Again, because I had been going into dates with such like an agenda and, trying to get real deep with people. And I remember that episode, I'm like, I'm just going to meet someone new. That's all I'm trying to do here,
And
you
have
know, is
fun.
just meet someone new and enjoy myself, enjoy getting to know someone. Like you were saying, that craving of just getting to know a stranger and, you know, having the conversation that you do when you don't know someone. And that's what I walked away with from my date feeling. Like I remember even being like, was that a friend vibe? Was that a romantic vibe? I don't even know, but you know what? I'll see what happens. And he did text me that day and was just like, oh, you, like, I forgot to tell you, or like, you looked really beautiful, or like, oh yeah, this is more than a friend. Also, just to kind of paint context, this is like in the thick of COVID where we're like in mass, still like 6 feet away from each other. It was a weird time in general. But like at first sight was nice for me because it reduced that pressure. And I think for someone like me, maybe why I'm skeptical of love at first sight is that I have had those experiences before. Whether it was love or not, who knows? But like that feeling like, oh my God, this is my person. This is the one. I'm so excited. And then it peters off. And part of it's probably because like my expectations went 20 steps above where we actually were. What actually worked better for me was to not give it as much expectation.
Yes. And all you can really do from a first date is to determine if you like this person enough to hang out with them again. It's not about planning your wedding and thinking about your house in the future. But yeah, sometimes our brains tend to fill in the gaps in the future from just a first meeting. How wild is that? Anyway, this is such a great story, such a great topic. We want to hear your experiences with love at first sight too. Maybe if you haven't left us a rating and review, you can do that. Go on Apple Podcasts, give us 5 stars. And then in the review part, tell us about a time that you had a love at first sight experience or your general opinions about love at first sight.
And, you know, there's no right or wrong as we're uncovering. It's really about your story and what comes out of it. But what we hope from episodes like this, even if you are the biggest skeptical of love at first sight, is that you could take something away from a different way of thinking and a different way of having an experience.
Yeah, there you go.
Other announcements, exit interview. If you haven't listened yet, get on it. We are rolling out our 7th episode. Very exciting. We just did a mid-season check-in. This is a limited series, 12 episodes only. We got to have a reunion and check in with the people that we had spoken with. So if you haven't caught up yet, this is a great Sunday binge activity. Go to a park, take a walk, listen to exit interview, or just lay down on your couch. You know, sometimes you need like screen time removed. I love listening to podcasts because I am so sick of looking at screens, whether that's computers or TV. And sometimes it's just freaking nice to lay in bed or lay on the couch, close my eyes, and listen to a podcast.
Oh, absolutely. And I realize many of you haven't gotten on the exit interview bandwagon yet. I ran into one of our OG Facebook community members, Jamie Black, in my neighborhood 2 weeks ago. And she was single when she joined the group, and she had brought in Saba, who was part of CNN when she joined the group. Both single women, and they're now both in relationships. Saba is engaged. Congrats, girl. And Jamie's been with her boyfriend for 2 years now. And so she's like, oh, I really enjoy the group and I really enjoyed the podcast, but I haven't listened in a few weeks just because, you know, I'm in this relationship now. And I asked if she had listened to Exit Interview, and she hasn't yet. And I realized many of you haven't started on these yet. So now's the perfect time to do it. This is a separate limited series that we co-produced with iHeart Podcasts, and we interview people's exes and former flames. So in case you haven't heard about it or gotten on that bandwagon, now's the time to do it.
Yep. So make sure to subscribe, rate it. It's a new podcast, so your ratings really help here. We are at 5 stars right now, a solid 5 stars. So help us continue to grow and keep it at 5 stars. And you can follow us at Exit Interview Show, and then, of course, at DATEABLE Podcast. Okay. Well, before we get into it, let's hear a message from our sponsors.
Support for today's episode comes from Honeylove. I've always felt so uncomfortable in shapewear with all the wires and restrictive fabric, but Honey Love has completely changed my mind. I can't believe how it can be so flattering and comfortable at the same time. Honey Love has revolutionized compression technology, so you no longer have to feel like you're suffocating while wearing effective shapewear. You'll immediately feel and see the difference. I love the best-selling Super Power Shorts. It has targeted compression technology that distinguishes between areas where you want more support and areas you need less compression. If you look at the pictures on their website, you'll see they have the Signature X design that sculpts your midsection without diminishing your natural curves. It's designed to work with your body, not against. And good news, they offer more than sculpt wear. Honey Love also has incredibly comfortable bras, tanks, and leggings for everyday support. And lucky for you, we have an exclusive offer for our listeners. Get 20% off your entire order with the code DATEABLE at honeylove.com. Support our show and check them out at honeylove.com and use the code DATEABLE. This episode is sponsored by Via. We all know there are things that can help set the mood in the bedroom, but did you know a little THC could also do that? Yes, Via has developed a unique blend of pleasure-enhancing cannabinoids, libido-strengthening herbs, and a low dose of THC all into one mind-blowing gummy called High Love. This gummy, wow, it will awaken your senses, increase blood flow, and intensify any sexual experience. I've been pleasantly surprised by the High Love gummies because it is just the right amount of THC for me to have a good time without feeling sleepy. And hey, if THC is not your thing, Via also offers a wide array of other gummies without it. And everything legally ships in 50 states with discreet packaging directly to your door. So if you're over 21, you can get 15% off and a free pack of award-winning Dreams THC plus CBN sleep gummies with our exclusive code DATEABLE at viahemp.com. That's VIIAHEMP.com. Let the gummies work their magic. Head to viahemp.com and use the code DATEABLE to receive 15% off and one free sample of their Sleepy Dream gummies. That's viahemp.com and use the code DATEABLE at checkout. Take your passion and pleasure to a whole new level with High Love from Via Hemp.
Okay, let's hear it from Kate about love at first sight.
You know, this topic of love at first sight, we can say that in the romantic sense, like, oh my God, you lock eyes and you immediately fall in love. Or we can say it in the very realistic sense where you have a strong attraction towards someone the first time you meet them. And is that real? And could that be sustainable? So our guest today, Kate, is someone that I would argue did experience some level of love at first sight with her now wife. So who is she? Welcome to our show, Kate.
Welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Thanks for being here. I've known Kate for a while, so it's kind of funny to do a formal introduction. But who is Kate? She's 31 years old, originally from New Hampshire, currently lives in LA. She is married. And again, we're talking about this concept of love at first sight. And psychologists would say love at first sight is a real phenomenon characterized by intense longing and extreme physical attraction that occurs within seconds of seeing another person. Wow. I felt sparks just reading that.
It's a lot to unpack there.
So then tell us about the first time you met your now wife.
Yeah.
What were those feelings that you felt?
It's interesting because I don't know that I fall exactly into the definition that you just read of love at first sight, but there was definitely something that happened. So I was in Austin, Texas, where I used to live. I went to college there, visiting for a friend's wedding. And it was really interesting because it was a friend I hadn't talked to in years. And I had passed up going to many weddings because I lived abroad, and then ended up going to this one wedding that I wasn't even that close with the person. I mean, I love her, but we hadn't talked in a while.
It was meant to be.
And the day after the wedding, it was April 21st, 2019, a mutual friend between myself and my now wife invited me to meet up at a bar during the day. And, I was really hungover, didn't really feel like going, but wanted to see my friend. It was like just not feeling my best, but ended up going. And I didn't meet Morgan, my wife, until like maybe an hour in. But when we met, it was just this like weird energy. Like we both felt it. We both knew something was there. We didn't acknowledge it at first, but I don't even know to this day exactly what it was. It was just like an energy is the best way I can describe it. It wasn't necessarily like, oh, damn, that girl's hot. Like I wasn't thinking those things, but there was just this attraction in maybe like the non-traditional sense. I wanted to keep talking to her. I wanted to be around her. She ended up leaving to go let her dogs out. And I remember feeling like, why didn't she invite me to go with her?
Oh.
Which is really weird because why would she?
She just met you.
You met like 5 minutes ago.
Yeah.
So when you saw her, were you like, this is someone I'm going to date? This is someone I'm going to be with? Or was it not that extreme?
It wasn't that extreme. One, because I lived in California.
Okay.
This was in Austin. She lived in Austin. Two, I had a full-on boyfriend at the time. We lived together.
Oh,
we had
okay.
a dog together.
Damn.
Yeah. We moved back from living abroad together. Like the whole thing, we were probably going to get engaged soon. So like my headspace was like definitely not there. So I certainly didn't think like, oh, that person, like something's going to happen. We just met and there was just this intense, like energetic connection.
But energetic in the sense of still attraction. Like this is someone I'm interested in.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely. Because I remember later that night, she left to go take care of the dogs. I was bummed she didn't invite me. But then she came back to, I was staying with our mutual friend that night and we were watching Game of Thrones. I hate Game of Thrones. My wife hates Game of Thrones. But my friend texted her and was like, you know, we're hanging out watching Game of Thrones. Do you want to come? She was there within like 5 minutes. And we ended up sitting on the couch that night and holding hands under a blanket.
Oh, shit.
Like weird. That doesn't happen. Like it was just like the weirdest, strangest connection that is even hard for me to explain now. And I had never cheated on my boyfriend. I told him about her right away. Like it was that kind of vibe where I was like, this is something. I don't know what it is, but like, I need you to know that I just met this person.
It was like a significant enough feeling for you to tell your boyfriend about, but also to tell your friends about. I mean, I've heard so many of your friends retell that exact story. Can you pinpoint what was it about Morgan that just made you feel this energy?
I don't know. I mean, you know Morgan. She is such a warm and loving and kind and fun person. She just has like a bubbly personality. She's also a little bit like self-deprecating. And so I thought that that was kind of funny and cute. But she's also really smart and really successful and comes from a great family and all this stuff. But then like has this side of her where she's like kind of like a little punk kid, like comes off like with the ripped jeans and the dyed hair. I don't know. She's just like a unique little flower to me.
So did she have the same feelings towards you also? Like, does she describe it as an immediate knowing?
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Interesting.
Yeah. She says that she was our mutual friend was like, she has a boyfriend, like, don't even go there. And then she was like, oh, but she has dated girls before. And I guess Morgan was like, so you're saying there's a chance.
She's like, I'm not going to let that stand in my way.
And I'll take that chance. And going back to holding hands under the blanket, watching a show that you both hate, how does the night progress from there?
Yeah, so it basically, I lived in Asia for 4 years and I had kind of recently come back. I came back in 2018. This was 2019. And a lot of people would be like, oh, I'm going there, next month. I'm going to Thailand. I'm going to Cambodia or whatever. And this was pre-COVID. So people actually did go. And I'd always be like, Lonely Planet, like so many great suggestions in there. And she told me she was going and I was sitting there writing out like the longest novel of recommendations.
Amazing.
And places to have her go. And so we were kind of like, I was in between doing all of that, holding hands and just like chatting. And then like the night was over. I was sleeping on the couch, said goodbye. And then she texted me and she was like, you can come stay with me if you want, if you don't want to like sleep on a couch. And I was like, absolutely not. Like we both know that's a terrible idea. We hadn't like acknowledged any like attraction or anything. We hadn't spoken about that, but the vibes were there. And I was like, I know that if I go there, like it will not end in a way that upholds my values.
Wait, so I need to rewind for a second. So you're at this bar, you guys meet for the first time, and then you're watching Game of Thrones. Like, and I know she had to go back and take care of her dog. Like, what's the time frame between these two meets? Is it hours?
Yeah, it had been hours. We probably met up at the bar around 1. I was probably there till like 3. We were probably hanging out back at my friend's house like 5 to 6. She probably left at like 9.
She like really just took care of business and got right back to you.
Yes. And she almost didn't go that day either. She wasn't feeling her best either and like didn't really want to go. And then we both ended up there.
She sent you a text to invite her over and you kindly turn her down. But this is definitely something special that you felt. So when you do end up going back to California, what do you tell your boyfriend?
Yeah, the boyfriend that's here the whole time.
By the way, the boyfriend, the live-in boyfriend.
Bless his heart. Well, backing up just a little bit, she did invite me over. When I said no, she also offered to take me to the airport at like 4 a.m.
Oh, wow.
That's so sweet.
It was really sweet. I mean, nobody does that.
No.
I declined. I took an Uber, but I was like, wow, that is really nice. Like, even if I don't stay over, she's willing to get up early and take me to the airport. So I get back and yeah, I had to just tell my partner at the time that like nothing happened, but like I met this person and it was kind of confusing and I'm not necessarily like into them or attracted to them. I was really trying to like downplay it, but like I felt like there was some sort of connection there and I just wanted to like be completely honest with him because in my dating and relationship philosophy, I believe that like open communication is everything. And even if nothing happens, but you have those crushes or you flirt, like, I just think it's better to talk about it than to hide it under the rug and then hope like that it doesn't fester into something because it usually does, or it will come out in a worse way later. To his credit, he was really open to receiving that and he didn't freak out or anything. And he was like, okay, well, just like talk to me about it. And then she was interviewing for jobs. When I met her, she was interviewing in New York and San Francisco. And then she kind of like pivoted her search more to San Francisco where I lived. She ended up flying out for job interviews. And the night she got there, we met up for dinner. And I invited my boyfriend and he actually declined. I don't know why, but I remember on my way out the door, he jokingly said, "Have fun on your date."
Oh my God.
Oh, wow.
I'm sure he's replaying those words now.
Yeah. And I just remember then in San Francisco walking, I was on one street and she was walking down the other street and just seeing her. And I hadn't seen her since that day. And at that point, then I was attracted to her and I was like, oh, wow, like just seeing her. And I don't know what it was, a different light, different energy. But I was like, oh, this is like butterflies.
So, oh, wow. Okay. There's so much to unpack here. So you're at this stage, you're on this date, even though your boyfriend was joking. It sounds like it was an actual date. Was this the tipping point that you were like, I want to be with her? Or was there still more to come before you hit that point?
I definitely had feelings at that point and told that to my boyfriend, but I wasn't ready to break off absolutely everything with my boyfriend that, we had built our entire relationship, our potential future together, our dog together. Like I wasn't ready to let go of all of that yet. And so it was a really, really, really hard couple of months when there was like this transition kind of happening.
Is this a narrative of you meeting someone so special that it takes you away from an already stable relationship? Or is this a narrative of this relationship was already maybe not headed towards where you thought it would and you were open to meeting other people?
It's interesting. I was happy in the relationship and it was stable. I wouldn't say the relationship was thriving. It wasn't everything I ever wanted, but I did think it was good enough at the time based on my experience and my view of the world and the view of myself. And he checked every single box. He's a great guy. He's married now and it worked. We didn't have big fights. There was no trust issues. Like it was good. And I was like, this is good enough. But a lot of people look really hard for this. Why am I being so selfish, wanting more? Like, this is good. There wasn't a spark. There wasn't that, like, as Sex and the City would say, va va voom, but it was good. It was good enough. And so I wasn't ready to throw that away for something that was so risky because it was a risk dating Morgan. I didn't know her that well, really.
Right.
And you just never know.
Well, that's the crazy part about love at first sight, or, call it what you want, but just this feeling early on without really knowing the person, because I can hear you. It's like you've built years with your boyfriend at the time, have all the history, and really you're just going off a feeling now. So it's like, how do you know when to listen to your gut though? Like, what was that turning point that you were like, this is something I need to pursue?
I mean, I was so turned around for a couple of months, and she kept visiting for interviews, and she actually stayed with us at one point. And then eventually my boyfriend was like, she's got to get her own place. Like, this is too much. Like, for a while, the three of us would hang out. We'd go to dinner. We'd go play tennis.
It was like, it really almost kind of was. And I talked to my boyfriend about an open relationship, or we were in San Francisco. Everyone's in an open relationship or a polyamorous situation or a throuple. Like, it's so common. And so I was kind of toying with that idea with him, and he really wasn't into it. And I had to respect that. It got to the point where we went to couples therapy because I was like, I don't know. I can't trust myself right now. I don't know what is right, what is left, what is up or down. I was so flustered. And I was going through a change in kind of career paths. And it was just a time. I guess it would be my Saturn return. Maybe that's a thing. There you go. Phoenix rising.
Sure. And so I was like, I need professional help here. So we went to couples therapy, and we went for about a month. And then we did decide ultimately to break up. And I kind of wanted to make that decision as separate as I could from my feelings for Morgan. And I really tried to make it about that relationship. And so I stopped talking to Morgan for 2 or 3 weeks. It was the hardest thing ever to do. But I was like, I really need this separation right now so I can just focus on this. I want to end this respectfully and in a way that we both feel okay about. And so we did that. And then I moved out, and then Morgan moved to San Francisco, and then we started dating. So there was maybe a month in between of a little bit of space.
Wow. Looking back on this as you're telling this story, have you ever felt this feeling for someone before, even when you were single?
I remember having insanely strong feelings at the beginning of my first relationship with a woman. But I think a lot of that was wrapped up in excitement of dating a girl for the first time, more so than the actual person. I mean, she was great and we got along really well and we had a lot of fun, especially at the beginning. But I think I was just so excited to explore this side of myself rather than versus Morgan. I really loved this person and loved the way she made me feel and the relationship between us.
And was that your only other relationship with a woman, or were there other women in between that first one and Morgan?
There were others in between, but it's kind of funny, and Morgan laughs about this. She was actually, I lived in Asia when I came out, so she was actually the first white woman that I dated.
Okay. Oh, I did not know this.
Yeah.
So exotic.
Oh, yeah.
Makes sense, though. Yes.
So, and she wasn't my type. And I guess, I mean, I was just dating the people that I met. I was in Asia. But so, yeah, she wasn't my traditional type, I guess. And so it was kind of funny.
And what about your boyfriend, the one we were just talking about? When you met him, was it what you were saying is this seems good enough? Or was there that initial feeling of, love at first sight or attraction immediately, the spark?
There was 6 months between our first and our second date, if that tells you
anything.
Oh,
wow.
I dated someone in that time.
Oh, shit. Okay.
A girl.
So
no, it was
moved really fast.
You're I just need to be dating women.
I told him
all signs are pointing to women.
It's look, I'm gay. I don't think we should date. And he didn't care. And I was like, okay.
So he knew what he was walking into. He knew.
I warned you. But no, there was never that spark. He was actually a client of mine when I was working in fitness. And yeah, where I lived in Bangkok, and the dating pool, it was just smaller in terms of the people I connected with and got along enough and brought me on trips around the world and nice dinners, and we had a good time together, and it was all fine. It was good. But no, there was never that there was enough attraction, but there wasn't a spark. And I was very honest with him about that from the very beginning. And it was like the one thing in our relationship that kept coming up as like a point of contention of like, I don't feel this the way I feel like I should. And just hoping that I would finally eventually feel it. And I never did.
I really want to talk about that because I think the spark can be very tricky for people to comprehend.
Yeah.
When you're talking about the spark, can you articulate what that means to you? Because looking back at your relationship with him, you even said this, so many people would be so happy to be in a relationship like that feels safe and stable and future oriented, but it was missing something. So now in hindsight, what is the something missing without using the word spark?
I don't know if it's energy or chemicals or hormones or something, but there's just that feeling of like desire, and you just want to be around them and you just adore everything about them. And that phase doesn't last forever, but I think it's important to have at least at some point in the relationship. And I just kept waiting for it, and it never came.
Dating is so tricky because we hear from people all the time, like, I didn't feel the spark. I didn't feel that initial chemistry. And sometimes there is a slow burn. A lot of times there is a slow burn. But I think what I'm hearing you say, there has to be a burn at some point. It can't just be forever waiting for that.
Yeah.
So when you met Morgan and you felt it, clearly you had some other obstacles to get over. But once you were able to, how did it develop into just like, okay, there's this energy versus like, okay, this is someone I can see myself with? Because I feel like with love at first sight, it's always, for someone that's logical, like I feel like it's hard for me to understand it because I'm like, oh yeah, there's attraction at first sight, but it's not necessarily love.
Yeah, no, fair. I think that we both did hard things in order to make it practical. Like I ended my relationship. She moved from Austin to San Francisco.
Yeah.
And once we did those hard things, it was so easy. It just clicked and it was so effortless. Like we just had this beautiful relationship where we just laughed and we were best friends and the spark was there and it was just the easiest relationship. Once we got to that point, it just was logical and practical and easy.
Tell us about the first real date you two had. Official real date.
I guess the first date was like I had officially broken up with my boyfriend, but I was still we were still cohabitating, which was uncomfortable, but I was looking for a place and it was her birthday and she came into town and I took her out and yeah, it was fun to be able to be together in that way. But yeah, it wasn't a perfect date, I would say. We ended up getting in like our first little tiff that night, actually.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. But it was fun. It was nice to be able to not feel so guilty about like my feelings for her.
Do you think like her coming into the picture was, what you needed to see that it was off with your last relationship?
100%. Looking back, like I knew it instinctively that it wasn't the relationship I should be in. I would wake up having like nocturnal panic attacks thinking about getting engaged and also like some job stuff too. But like in my heart, I just knew that if we got married, we would probably be together for a little bit, have a couple kids and like get divorced like 4 to 5 years later. Like I just like knew that. But yet I still couldn't bring myself to end it, because it was good enough. And I knew that wasn't fair to him. And so I just had all sorts of guilt or like, should I, shouldn't I kind of feelings. And he also was very passive, which kind of drove me nuts. Like he wasn't taking the reins and being like, I deserve better than this, or I want a partner who wants me in this way. He was just kind of like okay with it. And he was okay with me having these feelings for Morgan to an extent.
Right.
So I was like, okay, if you're fine with it, I guess I'm fine with it. Like for a while.
Well, the reason I asked too is because like we only know what we know. Like a lot of times we think like a good relationship is good until we get into something better. So it's hard sometimes. And like I hear what you're saying too. It's you don't want to think that's where it's going to go. And you're like, is my gut right? Or am I just overthinking? Like it's so hard to navigate sometimes.
And I was thinking, am I being selfish? Am I wanting too much? So many people would be okay with this. And also, I think I had been in like my previous longest relationship was with that girl that I felt that, initial connection with. my first girlfriend. And that was like a very, very, very chaotic relationship. Like we could do a whole podcast episode on that. Trust me.
I actually would like to.
Part 2.
We'll have you back. Yes.
And I think I thought that like, okay, this is stable. This is like what I should have. And I was just on like this pendulum. Like I went from one extreme to the other. And then I feel like with Morgan, it really is somewhere in the middle, like a healthy balance.
That makes so much sense. Let's hold that thought for a quick message.
This episode is made possible by Armoire. Armoire makes getting dressed easy. With a clothing rental membership from Armoire, build the perfect wardrobe with brands that are high quality, unique, and recommended just for you. All you have to do is take a 5-minute style quiz and select items from your dynamic, personalized closet. The styles show up at your door in as little as 2 days. Then when you're ready for new clothes, just swap them out. Listen, I live in Southern California. There is absolutely no need for puffer coats or any sort of those winter jackets. But when I travel anywhere else in the world in these cold months, I'm often burdened with the task of getting winter clothes. And now with Armoire, I can just rent my winter wardrobe. It's brilliant. Right now, our listeners can give Armoire a try and get up to 50% off their first month. That's up to $125 off. Just visit armoire.style/dateable. That is armoire.style, spelled ARMOIRE.style/DATEABLE to get up to 50% off your first month and never worry about what to wear again. Try Armoire today.
This episode is made possible by Badlands Pets. As you all know, Mojo, my precious baby, is the reason why I found love in the first place. He made me feel love again. So I would do anything to ensure his health and longevity. And actress Katherine Heigl and I have that in common. She's helped save over 16,000 dogs through her foundation. And after doing a ton of research, she feels there's one place we can look to improve any dog's health, and that's their food. So fortunately, she found that just by adding a few special superfoods to her dog's food, she saw huge transformations in their health. So she's made a 20-minute video explaining step by step how anyone can do the same thing to see incredible changes in their dog's health. I've definitely re-looked at what I'm feeding Mojo and making sure that, hey, he only has one life to live, and I want to make sure it's the best damn life. So if you want to keep your dog healthy and happy, go to badlandsfood.com/dateable and watch Catherine's video right now. Again, that's badlandsfood.com/dateable.
As you know, I recently left my corporate job and I've been in total recovery mode, all about self-care. One of my new routines is the nighttime shower before bed. There's just something about washing away the day and that reflection that's been super helpful for me. I've been using one of our partners, Osea's Mega Moisture Duo. This combo body oil and body lotion are so freaking incredible. It literally feels like I'm at a spa. I realized that the secret is seaweed and other skin level ingredients that are normally reserved for face products. And that's why I was so excited when Osea became one of our partners. And, you know, we're so grateful for partners like this because one, they keep the show going, but they're also super good for all of our listeners and for our own well-being. So if you want to have that nighttime bliss like I am doing, you can get 10% off your first order site-wide with code DATEABLE at oseamalibu.com. You'll get free samples with every order and free shipping on orders over $60. So head to oseamalibu.com and use the code DATEABLE for 10% off. Let us know which products you end up going with, share them in social. Super excited to see what you end up choosing.
I guess I really want to get into the challenges of transitioning into this new relationship, because with any new relationship, there's bound to be some of those initial challenges along the way. But for you, you went from one long one and now getting into this next serious one. What were some of those big hurdles you had to overcome?
Yeah, well, at first I definitely needed to go slow. I mean, as slow as lesbians can go.
What's slower than a U-Haul? Like what?
It's like a pickup truck. Just, yeah. Still got the luggage, but getting there really slowly. Multiple trips, yeah.
A wagon, pulling a wagon. Yeah. Horse and buggy. Yeah, no, I needed like a little bit of breathing room so that I could just find myself again, I guess, in like that space between like, I didn't want to just like break up relationship right away.
Mhm.
And so I like made it very clear. I was like, I'm not your girlfriend. We're not official.
Oh.
We're dating. We're getting to know each other on this level. We can still see other people. Like we can go on dates. Neither of us did, but I just had to say that.
Of course, you're right.
And that was tough for her because she was like, yo, I just moved here for you. Like, I want to be together. And I was like, I need some time. And yeah, so we definitely had like, there was a little bit of friction there. It was tough for me emotionally to like get into something so serious right after being in something so serious. So in lesbian world, we took our time. I think it was like 4 months before we moved in together.
It's like 50 years.
50 hetero years, yes.
But I did get my own place and I had my own place. I didn't sleep at it very often, but I did have it. And then at one point, I think it was September or October, we were in a workout class. We were at a Barry's class. And in the middle of the class, I was like, will you be my girlfriend?
Oh.
As she's about to puke after getting off the treadmill. That's super romantic.
Because I wanted to do it in like a situation where she would just not expect it at all. And so after
she's
that,
like, thank God. It's about time.
Yeah. Then we were official. Yeah.
Okay, so you're official then. How long between her moving to San Francisco to DTR?
DTR. Let's see. Her birthday is June 18th. That was like our first date. June, July. And then I think it was September, October when we were DTR. And then I think I moved in November. We took a trip to Thailand together in November. And then, yeah, COVID in February.
And what was like her history, as much as you could share? Obviously, she's not here, but was she someone that this happened to a lot, like this immediate feeling, or was it a first for her?
I think it was a first for her. She had been in one serious relationship with a guy in her early 20s, and then another serious relationship with a girl, maybe like 25-ish. And I think that was like maybe 2 or 3 years. And then she had kind of just been like dating and single for a couple of years between, or maybe a year between. But no, she definitely wasn't like a serial dater or like serial person who I've met a lot of her friends who she was close with when we met, and they tell me that it was like unlike anything they had ever seen.
Okay.
From her.
Oh, wow.
So this is new for both of you. This is like a new feeling.
Mm-hmm.
On a spectrum of being extremely romantic to extremely practical, where do you sit on that spectrum?
I'm probably more like a 7-ish romantic type.
Okay.
More on the romantic side. Where do you think Morgan sits?
Good question.
Hey, babe.
Where do you fall on the scale?
I'm just talking about you right now.
Maybe like impulsive is another word. You know, like some people that just like, just go with it kind of thing.
I think she's probably more practical.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but she was kind of like me. Her relationship with the guy was kind of like mine. It was like safe and steady and fine and good. But yeah, she didn't feel it either.
Right.
Wonder why.
And obviously with you, she took some risks moving to a new place. That's a pretty big leap.
She never really wanted to live in San Francisco.
I feel like there's a pattern. She didn't want to watch Game of Thrones. She didn't want to move to San Francisco. She's doing all this for you, Kate.
Yep.
She is. She's very, very giving.
So in every relationship, you know, there's something, right? Like the rose-colored glasses come off to some degree and you start to see some annoyances with people. It's always there a little. Like when you started to see something, if you did, I don't want to say for sure you did, but like it's natural, we're human. Did you ever question like, was I wrong about love at first sight, or was it just like, nope, this is part of the course?
Yeah, I guess when that like initial feeling kind of faded, as it always does, that freaked me out a little bit because I was like, oh no,
Yeah.
was it just like, was I caught up in the moment and in a feeling, or like, did I do the wrong thing? I knew I did the right thing breaking up with that person because I knew that wasn't right. But like, I was like, oh my gosh, was this the right thing to do? But we talked through it, and I don't think it's practical to always to have that feeling forever. And then I think it ebbs and flows. And as soon as it came back again, I was like, oh, cool. Okay. So it's just going to go up and down. And that's just me and us. And I think everyone, and just people don't really talk about it. And so
no one talks about it, that it's totally normal.
And like when I expressed to her that I wasn't up here anymore, she kind of freaked out and was like, well, what does that mean? Blah, blah, blah. And it really upset her. And so once she kind of learned that I am very open and I'm going to tell her how I'm feeling at every moment, for better or for worse, she was able to like manage that. And once I could trust that it was those feelings were going to come back and the ebb and flow was normal, then I could calm down. So we just had to like find our rhythm with that.
There's something really beautiful about that, because in most relationships, you want to tell each other when you're in love and when things are good, but you're so transparent with every phase of how you're feeling. And I think that's what builds trust in a relationship, and that communication is that you can communicate kind of the low points. But I also want to point out with the ebb and flow, yes, it happens in relationships, but the reason why you exited out of the last relationship is because it feels like it didn't ebb and flow.
Yeah.
It was just flatline.
Yeah.
That is the main difference between sometimes the initial attraction does go away versus like a relationship that's just not serving you.
Yeah, totally.
God, relationships are so complex. 'Cause I'm just thinking about what you said earlier about, your first girlfriend, that it was chaotic. And I've been there before too. I've definitely met, like my ex I met and I was just like immediately very attracted to, but it was also a bit chaotic. So then you want to overcorrect, and clearly there is a middle ground is what you ended up finding. How do you start to like trust those feelings? Because I could also see too with what you were just saying of, okay, I had this strong feeling, now it's going away. Am I right? Did I do the right thing? Like, how do you just like stay committed to like riding it out?
It's a really good question. And honestly, therapy.
Yeah.
Like
The answer to everything.
Learning to trust yourself again and realizing where your limiting beliefs are that are like eroding your feeling of self. So like, I think with that relationship I was in, I had limiting beliefs about what I deserved and what kind of relationship I could find that would be fulfilling in all these different ways. And so I just felt like it's good enough. Like I can't do better kind of feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And so once I learned that that was just like my limiting belief, like eroding my own intuition, then I was able to be like, okay, my intuition was there the whole time. I just had this limiting belief. And so now I know moving forward to examine what might be making me question myself more, if that makes sense.
A lot of people could relate to what you just said. That was very insightful.
Yeah, to free yourself from the confines of what you think you know is like the first step to really understanding what could be out there. But I will also say you were in your 20s, right? Like, I got time. I'm still young. I can explore. If this were to happen to you, let's say in your late 30s, that you're still in a relationship with the ex, do you think that would affect how you would change things?
I don't know, because I actually felt at 28 like I couldn't find another relationship because I was surrounded by a lot of friends who were trying to date in the city I was in or around the world, and just would constantly tell me how miserable it was and how awful it was. And they would tell me about all of these bad dates, and they would tell me about all of this online dating, the stuff you guys hear all the time.
Yep.
And I was terrified to experience that. And I had these doubts about my own self-worth because I felt like I was behind in my career because I had lived abroad and blah, 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 blah. And I was in San Francisco, which is this like city that's hyper focused on career and success and having all the things and money. And it's one of the most expensive cities in the world. And so I just felt like this is good. This is fine. This is safe. And so I was 28 at the time. If I were 38 at the time, it would have been even harder to leave. But I did already have those feelings. Like I'm an old maid at 28.
I I mean, it just goes to show you that it's all limiting beliefs, right?
It's all in your head.
All of it is in your head,
Yeah.
no matter what your age. Like, if you're going to believe, you'll get evidence to believe it.
Exactly. You're going to think you're not pretty enough, you're not smart enough, you're not this enough, you're not that enough, but you are. And someone's out there who's going to love you the way you are.
People come back in the dating pool all the time nowadays.
Sure do.
Get divorced, you're back in there. You know? It's not like it used to be.
It's true. Although it's very sad. It's very sad to think about. I'm going to shift gears for a sec because I want to focus our conversation back to this myth or belief in love at first sight. I think this statistic is super fascinating. According to a 2017 study with singles in America, 34% of people said that they've experienced love at first sight. Of those, 41% were men and 29% were women. With that stat, I just want to open it up to the floor. What are some of your initial reactions to that? More men have claimed that they've experienced love at first sight.
So I guess it's even more rare that two women felt it for each other.
There you go.
Yeah,
That's good.
there you go.
Yeah.
I mean, this is, I guess, one of my maybe skepticisms on it is that it's just attraction and looks based. In that, I think sometimes women can be guilty of this too, but I think men sometimes can be more superficial. There are studies that say that. It's not just me making that comment. That's where my head goes to. Like, is this solely based on attraction? And the word love being loosely thrown around.
That's interesting. I guess through my experience as a dating coach for men, I had a lot of clients who experienced this, who became almost obsessed with women they would meet. And just from like a first glance or a first hello, and they can't get over the thought of this person. And I'm not sure if it comes from just our upbringing of not being able to communicate our feelings and to let someone know that you like them, or just this is how movies have portrayed how love goes. Is like, that first stare, first glare. My most watched video on YouTube when I was doing these YouTube videos was when a woman holds your gaze, what does it mean?
Oh my God.
That was my most watched video because I think people want to read into that first interaction quite a bit, especially men.
I think I'm just way too logical. Like, I'm like, I need to get to know this person. They need to unravel. But I see what you're saying, especially, I think, I'm not saying everyone, clearly this isn't you, Kate, but like, I feel like sometimes maybe if you've had less relationship experience too, like I'm thinking some of the people that maybe came to you for coaching, it's like someone glances your way and you're like, oh, this means something. Mm-hmm. There is like this kind of, it's almost so blissful and naive, but like in the cutest way possible that you're just like trying to like, you know, find love the way you see in the movies. Yeah. That I think some people could come into. Again, not everyone. Clearly, you were saying, Kate, like you had this feeling, like this gut feeling. And I think that is also a very real side of this too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I also wonder if some of it's like ego based, like men just maybe have a little bit more ego and they're like, oh yeah, I got this, it's love at first sight, where a woman might be like, oh, they're attractive, but like, okay, we'll see what happens.
I mean, I think the true test too is like how many of those actually became relationships and then how many became marriages and like full on relationships.
For sure.
I actually did work with someone who they're now divorced, so I'll start with that. But he was in Vegas, walked past this woman, they locked eyes, and they stopped in the middle of the street, went up to each other, said hello, and she said, we need to be together. And he said, yeah, we do. And they started dating. Like they met on the street in Vegas and they were married for about 5 years. That is kind of like my, I guess my only data point for true love at first sight. But it did work for those years. The way they told me the story was just something like the universe totally shut off and the street had completely gone dark and it was just the two of them in the middle of the street. Wow. And the world had disappeared around them.
That's a lot of pressure on a relationship.
It sure does.
I think
know?
that's what I'm seeing with your situation, Kate, is like you had that feeling. Like you also had some time that
Yeah.
you rectified that feeling. It wasn't just like, I'm just going to
Yeah.
jump and be impulsive based on this one feeling.
I tried really hard to shove it down and to
Mm-hmm.
stop talking to her and to shut it off and to make it go away, because that was hard. That was like, I had to do a lot of hard things if I wanted to go do that, if I wanted to go be with Morgan. And so I really tried to just get her out of my head, and neither of us could.
Maybe it's less about like, is love at first sight like the way to like have a healthy relationship or not? But it's more of, okay, this first instinct, then what happens after the fact.
Yeah, that's way more important. What do you do with that feeling? How do you process it in a real way?
Because I think relationships can start many ways, like there could be no spark and it grows, but it has to grow, like is what we're learning from your first story too.
From my experience.
Like it has to be there. So it's just, we put so much emphasis on the way we first meet, but we don't think about like the whole story.
I think the spark thing like comes down to the person. Like my partner was fine with the level of spark between us, and I just wasn't. I think that it's a lot about your own personality and what's important to you too. So maybe if two people who don't really care about it get together and there's not much between them, it can work and they can be together for a long time and be happy.
Yeah, totally.
Does that scare you all? It scares me a little bit to think, could there always be a bigger spark with someone else?
Oh, it's terrifying.
Could my life be even better with someone else? Even though I'm happy, I feel stable, I feel safe. I haven't unlocked this other euphoria of a relationship that I haven't even encountered.
But that's also a dangerous path too, right?
That's
That can
super
keep you single
dangerous.
forever, like chasing the high of the highs.
You can what if yourself to death in anything, relationship, work, where you live, anything. I try not to go down that path.
It's a hard balance because it's like at one point you need to just be happy with what you have, but then also you don't want to be forcing yourself to just be happy with what you have. So I think you instinctively know in your gut what the difference is. It's just how much are you going to listen to it.
Yeah. And if it's like genuine, if you're just like writing in your gratitude journal because, you're supposed to say these things that you're grateful for and you don't feel it.
Yeah. It's hard though, because we don't really know too, like what some years to come will be. Like anyone, even if you had that love at first sight, immediate feeling, or it's been the slow burn, either situation, we don't know. We just have to accept we don't know.
But I also think that like my body told me in a lot of
Yeah.
ways. Like when I was in the relationship that wasn't right, I was having these literal panic attacks. I would wake up in the middle of the night bawling my eyes out. Just like up bawling. And then versus when I met Morgan, it was, all sorts of like euphoria feelings and the good, happy kind. So it's like almost like I had to like trust my body to know.
So hard when you're in it though, because you're like, I'm just overreacting. I'm thinking too much. Like it's so difficult.
I'm just stressed out, or I'm just like, it's this,
Right.
it's that. Yeah.
Yeah.
We can always talk ourselves out of how we're really feeling. Julie, I just want to ask you, have you experienced something close to love at first sight?
I don't know. I mean, I definitely have like gone on dates and just been like, I'm into this person. But I don't know if it was a feeling of I'm going to be with this person. And not to say that yours was necessarily, Kate, either, but I feel like you had more of a draw. Like I think my head got in the way too much. I just think I'm too logical to like think through that I was always like, I gotta temper my expectations and see what happens, if that makes sense. I've definitely had attraction, but I've never called it love at first sight at all or thought about it that way.
Yeah, I can see that. You're very logical. But you're also a romantic, so they're kind
of
competing.
I'm just confusing.
What about you, Yue?
Well, I know Kate loves my partner, so you'll love this story. I truly feel like there was something the minute I met him. We met in 2012. We were at a club, but he made an impression on me and he didn't say much. But the first time we met, I was like, this is someone that I'm going to see again. I don't know in what capacity.
Yeah.
But I think he's going to be in my life somehow. And he wasn't for many years until he reappeared in 2018. So it's kind of the universe for me works in those mysterious ways. People do come in for a reason.
Yeah.
Even if that never turned into my current relationship with my partner, I still feel like he made some impact in my life at that point where I was like, you know what? I felt something and I really liked it. I liked that feeling.
Did you think like this is going to be my partner? Like, was there any of that correlation to it?
No, because I'm also logical. Not as logical as you, but we didn't live in the same city.
Yeah.
We met at a club. I had no idea if he even was dating someone at the time. It was so random, but it is like this energy, Kate, that you're talking about. I feel like I felt that with him. Just something like a vortex that drew us together. Even for that millisecond, it meant something.
I mean, I think that's like a good segue to takeaways. Like, it's probably like, how do you define love at first sight too, right? Like, I think it's this energy even if it's not love at first sight, I think energy in dating is so important, and listening to your body. Like, we keep hearing that over and over again, and trusting yourself and the limiting beliefs, all of what you said earlier, Kate, with that, like, really just rung true. And I think a lot of times, like, we don't know how to trust ourselves and our intuition with some of this stuff. And it's important that we, like, if we're in something that doesn't feel right, we don't hold on just because of that. If you're just confused, you didn't work it out, that's different than instinctively knowing, like, this is not the right relationship for me because I'm waking up having panic attacks all the time.
Yeah.
So I think that that's a really good point to remember. The other big takeaway I'd have is that, like, love works in mysterious ways. I think, like, just the fact that you were brought together, we underestimate all the times that the universe does bring us to certain places and people. Even if you're meeting on a dating app, there's a reason why you cross paths with that person and you both swiped on each other. Like, we have to remember all of this a bit more. I'm saying this too, to appreciate it when it happens for you, but also when it hasn't happened for you yet, like, just pay attention to it. And just a lot of finding the right person is timing and being in the right place, and it will happen. So if you haven't experienced this type of love yet, then you still have time. It can still happen, as evidenced by Kate's story. And I think the last thing I'll say here is that no matter how your story starts, I don't believe there is a right way. I don't think that it has to be this huge spark or it has to be the slow burn. I don't think there's an either or of what makes a successful relationship. It's what happens after the fact and what happens when you hit hard times and you hit challenges. Like, how do you get over that stuff when it's not just based on pure feeling too?
Could not agree more with all of it.
One big takeaway for me would be believe in magic at first sight. I think that's probably a better way of framing it. We can't always be too rational in dating because otherwise there is absolutely no fun in dating if we take away that. Believe that magic can happen and believe that magic can happen on both sides. It's not just one-sided. I also believe that through your story, Kate, it just shows that relationships are very multidimensional and we have to let them play out that way. Something that happened at your wedding when you two were saying your vows. After you were done, I was a wreck. I was in tears, crying, like makeup smeared everywhere. My partner was fucking laughing. He was like belly laughing. Like he couldn't contain himself because he thought the vows are so funny. And that showed to me how multidimensional you two are. I felt like you two connect on a very deep level that's like best friends and that you can really be there for each other. And he was like, they can be silly and they can be so fun and they can finish each other's sentences. He just thought that was just so funny, the way that you two can complete each other's thoughts. So that shows like, when do you know you're in a good relationship is that when you can explore like all the different dimensions of what your relationship can bring you. And the third takeaway is don't wait for someone to show you that you're in the wrong relationship. And I really, really appreciate you, Kate, for separating the two, that you saw these two as two separate entities, a relationship that was not serving you. You have to end that. But it really did not have anything to do with Morgan coming into the picture. She may have prompted something, but you did not end this relationship for her. Nobody wants that pressure either. Nobody wants someone to end a relationship for them. So I'm so glad you separated the two. So for anybody who's like waiting for someone to come in and be better for them and show them that they're in the wrong relationship, like give up that thought now, because it's better to evaluate the relationship separately.
100%.
Yes to all of that. And just, trust yourself and trust your intuition, as hard as it can be.
Yeah.
What a lovely conversation. Thank you, Kate, for telling us your side of the story. I was thinking about we should probably get Morgan's side of the story one of these days, because I love Morgan. She would tell this story a little bit differently, which would be so much fun. But trusting your intuition is a great way to wrap up this episode for all of our listeners. Why don't you go on Apple Podcasts, give us a 5-star rating and review, and in your review, tell us how you've trusted your intuition recently. A little anecdote, a story, maybe a quote you've heard. Let's just remind each other what trusting our intuition could look like.
Or tell us about your first love at first sight experience.
Yeah, if you have
one.
First sight.
Magic at first sight.
Magic at first sight. I like that. I like that better.
Put that on a shirt.
Yes.
Fabulous. We will wrap up this episode.
Stay dateable.
The Dateable Podcast is part of the Frolic Media Network. Find more podcasts you'll love at frolic.media/podcasts. You can follow us on Instagram at Dateable Podcast and visit dateablepodcast.com for access to all the episodes and our premium programs. Also, make sure to subscribe today if you haven't already on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast platform, so you are the first to get all the latest episodes. And most importantly, stay dateable.